Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Tales of Herding Gods based on novel. So let's start. Hiding in the area covered by sun well and getting attacked by people was definitely not Qin Mu's style. His way was to grab any chance to land a fatal blow with a lightning-fast strike. Butcher had once told him that it wasn't hard to see the chance, but only those who could grab it ended up known as heroes. Those who saw the chance yet hid and did not make a move were cowards. Numerous people that were stronger than Butcher would usually be defeated by him because he was brave and pushed forward boldly. He never considered prudence and just grabbed every chance he saw. The chance that Qin Mu grabbed was to taking advantage of the moment when the devil god used itself to send in the body replicator devils into Sunwell and couldn't break free. That was why he had Sunship break through the world formed by Sunwell and swung the sun to smash his opponent into smithereens. Being trapped in Sunwell and defending against the opponent's attacks wasn't his style. This would only make him follow the opponent's rhythm and suffer from continuous encirclement, letting the opponent attack however they wanted. That was why he changed the rhythm by rushing out and destroying the leader straight away. You fight your way, and I'll fight my way. If I win, you're dead. It was that simple. And it was the essence of Butcher's knife skills. Sun-haired Chief's body was still slightly weak. He looked at the rattling chains in Qin Mu's hands as he dragged the sun which he had used to smash the devil god back. That sun had burned the surroundings and the ground had turned into bubbling lava. Suddenly, the corners of Qin Mu's eyes twitched, and so did those of the old chief. They had heard cracking sounds coming from the sun. Qin Mu blinked and gently shook the chains to flick this sun up. He didn't use all of his strength as he seemed to be afraid of breaking the sun. The old chief stood up shakily, but right then, the sun that had floated back into the air suddenly gave off a loud cracking sound again. The old chief looked up and saw an alarming crack on his tribe's treasure. He couldn't help the energy that left his limbs again. It's all right, it's all right. Qin Mu's voice boomed as he consoled, it won't shatter. Don't worry. The body replicator devil god had been shattered in one strike, but there were still countless devils frantically attacking Sunship. They continued their slaughter and assimilation of warriors of the Sun-herd tribe. At the same time, countless devils ate each other, the bigger ones swallowing the smaller ones, so their bodies would grow larger and larger. Their cultivation also grew stronger like a rolling snowball. 3 devils who were growing larger and larger stood on Sunship while other devils rushed into their mouths, feeding them. The body replicator devil god was not the true body. Qin Mu was astonished. He shouted, and the sun in the sky burst forth with incomparably intense true fire which flooded down and burned through Sunship. Sun true fire blazed and turned the entire Sunship into a flaming divine ship. Countless devils shrieked as they got burned, slowly turning into black smoke that vanished in flames. Qin Mu controlled Sunship. Although it was a treasure to guide the sun to rise from the east and set in the west, it also had an extremely strong offense. In the past, when Yang Jingjing had controlled it, she couldn't unleash all of its power because the sun had been extinguished. But once Qin Mu had reignited the sun, the might of the ship had instantly unleashed. Even though sun true fire was incomparably terrifying, it wasn't much of a threat to the sun herders. They had lived on the ship ever since they were young and what they breathed was the qi of pure yang, so they had an extremely high resistance to true fire. Hu Linga, Ling Yuxiao, and Sai Yunxiang were fighting together with the bunch of dragons and the dragon Qilin in the meantime, so the sun true fire didn't sweep past there. The little fox who was standing on the dark green flood dragon was very excited and kept on shouting, but she couldn't do much. Compared to the bunch of flood dragons, her abilities were insignificant. Qin Mu burned countless body replicator devils, but the 3 abnormally large devils were not burned to death. Instead, they crawled rapidly among the intense fire and suddenly leaped up. The bone wings on their backs flapped as they rushed toward Qin Mu who was in the center of the ship. One of the devils swooped down and stretched its hand out to pull out the devil god halberd that was stabbed in a huge hole. His aura then instantly erupted. Don't use the sun, the old chief shouted the moment he saw Qin Mu wanting to swing the sun again. If you smash it once more, it's really going to shatter. We old bones will block those devils for you. Troublesome. Qin Mu stopped and surveyed his surroundings, searching for the true body of the body-replicated devil god. The old chief shouted loudly, calling over the elders to face the three devils. Their bodies were incomparably huge and their strength was also great. Even when facing the old chief and the elders, they were not in a disadvantageous situation. The old chief grabbed a bronze bell and it rang continuously. It didn't look like a treasure from the mortal realm as layers of runes appeared on its walls. The ringing circled non-stop around the bronze bell and sun-shaped fireballs came flying out to bombard the enemies. However, the broken halberd was still a devil god weapon, so it could easily slice apart all the divine arts from the bronze bell. It was extremely powerful. Qin Mu looked around and saw the deep and profound darkness of great ruins. He still didn't know where the true body of the body-replicated devil god was located. Suddenly, the thump of heavy footsteps came from the darkness, and the ground trembled continuously from the vibrations. The footsteps came from all directions and became faster and faster. Suddenly, the noise vanished, then changed into the sound of something breaking through the air. It was very sharp and Qin Mu's heart sunk. He saw numerous body-replicated devils with huge bodies flying over through the darkness, straight for Sun's ship. It was indeed not its true body. Qin Mu's heart moved slightly, and carefree sword suddenly came out from its sheath to float silently in the sky without moving. On Sun's ship, the sun hung high up in the sky as warriors gripped their weapons anxiously. They looked above and watched the numerous huge devils covering the rays of the sun as they came to Sun's ship. The size of their shadows struck fear into their hearts. At that moment, sword lights burst forth, and it was as if there was a silver sun in the center of Sun's ship. The terrifying sword will and sword chi shot off in all directions like sunlight. The divine might of carefree sword swept through the sky and black rain started falling on the enemy. Countless broken limbs fell and almost filled Sun's ship completely. Yet there was a devil in the sky that had avoided all the sword lights and flown near the four pillars. It passed through two of them and went straight for Qin Mu. The huge eye in the center of the devil's face flashed with black light as it shone on Qin Mu's face. The four claws gripped onto Qin Mu's chest and dug deep into his flesh. The black light from the devil's eye became darker and darker as though it would swallow everything, so the spirit and soul of a person to continuously fall even though it had already fallen. On the ship, everyone cried out in alarm. The face of the old chief and the elders changed drastically. They hurriedly abandoned the three devils and rushed over to Qin Mu frantically. However, the three devils immediately flew over and delayed them, making it hard for them to save Qin Mu. You were able to come here because I let you. Qin Mu's eyes stared straight into the devil eye of the devil as his gaze flickered. I want to use your shared mind to know where your true body is hiding. The gaze of the devil shone onto Qin Mu's eyes, and countless voices rose in his mind. It was as if he could see countless figures, and every one of them belonged to a body-replicated devil. Everything in his vision vanished, but for the forest formed from the figures of the devils. It grew larger and larger as the figures of millions of devils formed while continuing to spread out. The mind and consciousness of the devils flooded Qin Mu's mind as they tried to assimilate him. He executed Overlord Body 3 elixir technique, and his spirit embryo fused with his soul. A huge sun instantly appeared in his mind which surrounded the spirit embryo and protected the spirit platform, burning all the consciousness that was flooding over into ashes. There were more and more figures in the darkness, and it made his heart palpitate. With the minds of so many devils converging together, his spirit platform was about to be drowned out. Once that happened, it wouldn't take long for his spirit embryo to be assimilated by the devils. That was why he had to find the location of the devil god before his spirit platform was invaded. At that moment, his gaze seemed to cross numerous sights, and he saw a devil god that was creeping among mountains and rivers. He was situated between two mountains which he was holding with his four limbs. Between them was a river while behind a door. From it, body-replicated devils poured out like flood and surged over continuously. Countless devils were sprinting through the river surface and flying in the sky. They swallowed each other over and over again to transform into the large devils. The instant Qin Mu saw the devil god also saw him. He raised his head and his huge eye filled with bafflement as though he was puzzled. What followed afterward was that devil god who was creeping between the two mountains saw a bright light shining in the darkness. It was becoming brighter and brighter. A ball of light was rushing over, and it was becoming larger and larger as its speed became faster and faster. It soon became a huge sun that slid down at an angle from the sky, appearing above the river channel. Wherever the huge sun passed, the river water would be evaporated instantly, and all the devils on the way would be turned to ashes or vaporized. The huge sun distorted the space in the surroundings and caused the mountains to shake. It looked as though it had become a giant who was doing a strange dance. Devil language came from the mouth of the devil god and was transmitted into Qin Mu's mind by waves of consciousness. Little child who only likes to smash thing on a whim. His body trembled violently, and the bone wings behind his back rattled. They flew off from his body as though they were devil god weapons, their shape similar to that of the broken halberd on Sun's ship. They shot toward the huge sun. Kai, Kai, Kai! The halberd shot into the huge sun. It became slower and slower until finally landing in the river valley and sliding thousands of yards forward before coming to a halt. Kacha. Sun's ship's sun split into two, and a smile broke out on the face of the devil god. However, at that moment, Sun Jedi rolled out from the broken sun and tumbled one round forward. The Sun Jedi, which was several yards in height, suddenly straightened its pupil and a snow-white light shot out, slicing the huge eye of the devil god in half. He gave a miserable, world-shaking shriek as he dodged the attack. The beam of light sliced the skin next to his eye, so deep that the bone could be seen. Behind the broken sun, Carefree sword transformed into a trail of light which went into his mouth and came out the other side after having pierced his brain. The sword then turned around and returned through the back of the head and came out at the front. Carefree sword was like a needle, threading to and fro through the devil god's head over 1,000 times. It was also like a cold light swirling rapidly around his neck. When it was retracted back, the head of the devil god was filled with holes. The neck swayed, and the head, which was the size of a mountain, slid off. The body landed against the door that was behind the devil god's body, and the noise rang through the mountains. The corpse of the headless devil god slumped down, and the claws that were gripping the two mountains loosened. The body fell into the river channel below. The door behind was also blocked by it. In the meantime, on Sun's ship, the warriors of the Sun-Herder tribe were in a bitter struggle, since there were simply too many devils flooding over. Even if the Sun-Herders were natural warriors, they still found it hard to withstand the attack. Many people died and were assimilated by the devils. Yet suddenly, all of the devils froze on the spot in a daze. The next moment, all their faces distorted as though two souls inside were fighting over the control of the body. The eye on some of the devils' faces split into two before merging back together, which looked very strange. Most of the strong and sturdy Sun-Herders stopped their attacks, at a loss. Their enemies had been fighting back with ferocious a second ago, but the next, they had all fallen into a strange state. After a moment, the devil who had been fighting with Sun-Herder chief crumbled and transformed back into a bunch of body-replicator devils. The face of the devil in the lead changed, and the devil markings on its body receded rapidly. After a moment, it transformed into a woman with transparent feather clothing made of scales. Her figure was elegant while her skin was fair and even a little translucent. The woman looked around in a daze, completely unaware that her scales didn't cover her body well. What is this place? Her eyes were filled with doubt. She didn't open her mouth to talk, but a message was sent out with brain waves so everyone could hear her voice and understand what she was saying. Why am I here? Soon after, more devils changed. All of them were dressed like the woman. The clothes on their bodies were not truly clothes. Instead, they were delicate wings formed from scales, and there was more than a single pair. Their whole bodies were full of wings of all sizes. Their feathers were scaled, which was a very rare sight even among beasts. Only a few of such creatures existed in great ruins. However, there were no humans with scaled feathers. And they could actually even change. The woman who woke up first quickly noticed her clothes were not covering her body, and her scaled feathers changed according to what she wanted. They shimmered, and their color changed into black, making it seem like the woman was wearing a black gown. The scaled feathers on the others also changed colors to cover their bodies. Once all of them were dressed, they looked around in a daze, having no idea where they were. The sun herders on Sunship were also in a daze. They didn't know why the devils could have transformed like that. Sun Herder Chief had a guess though. They should be a foreign race which got assimilated by the body replicator devil god. Now that the main consciousness died, the control over them has disappeared, and they have regained their freedom. This means, body replicator devil god is dead. The elders beside him revealed looks of ecstasy. Suddenly, a rattling sound came from their backs, and they immediately turned around to take a look. Behind them, Qin Mu was holding onto the pillars with 2 hands while the other 2 were dragging the chains back. They were embedded in the sun and were treasures that tied it down, so it was pretty exhausting to pull them back. The old chief couldn't help becoming worried again. He immediately came to the pillars in the center and raised his head. "Your Highness, why have you thrown the sun out again?" Qin Mu lowered his head and hesitated as he saw the man's hopeful gaze. "This?" After a moment, the old chief saw the sun being dragged back. 2 black lumps were there, looking like huge mountains in a hemisphere shape. The old chief and the elders stared blankly. The other sun herders on Sunship also looked at the 2 black lumps in a daze. Not only had their sun been extinguished, it was even split into 2 halves. Rattle, rattle. The sound of the chains being pulled was very painful to the ears. Qin Mu pulled the 2 halves of the sun back and called his carefree sword. It lifted Sun Jade Eye and flew leisurely back toward him. "Chief, 2 good news. The first one is that body replicator devil god is really dead," Qin Mu said with a guilty conscience. Stupefied, the old chief stared at him. When he spoke, his voice sounded like it came from a machine. "What about the other good news? We can change a new sun now." The old chief turned his head to look at their highness, wanting to cry, but no tears came out. truly good," he muttered. Qin Mu pulled the 2 halves of the black sun back, and there were tens of thousands of scaled feather mutants following behind it, coming closer to Sunship. Some of the people didn't manage to catch up to the sun and ended up dying in the darkness of great ruins. The remaining 1 knew how dangerous the darkness was and warned each other. More and more of them then caught up to the sun, and only then were they spared from death. They didn't rely on voice to communicate, but instead relied on their brain waves. Without talking, they were still able to inform the others, which was very unusual. Qin Mu dragged the 2 halves of the sun back onto Sunship when a voice rang out in his mind. "Heavenly Feather Clan, Yu Jiaoqing, pays her respects to the owner of this place." Qin Mu was slightly stunned as he looked at the woman in the black gown that was walking toward him. Her actions were sincere, natural, and unrestrained. The black gown quickly changed to a light yellow color. When she came to the side of the sun divine pillars, not only were her clothes light yellow in color, their style was even similar to that of the old chief and the rest. The scaled feathers on her body had to be able to change in shape as well as color. Qin Mu loosened his grip on the sun pillars, and the 2 arms under his armpits gradually shrunk back. The leg behind his buttocks also shrunk back into his body while the terrifying energy of Sunship receded continuously. After a moment, his body returned to its normal size. Qin Mu hurriedly hid behind a pillar and took out a new set of clothes to replace his tattered ones. After some grooming, he came out from the back of the pillar. When he was holding the sun pillars, his strength had risen tremendously and his corporeal body had become extremely gigantic, bursting open his shirt. Even though his shirt was a spirit weapon, Qin Mu had transformed into a 300 yards giant at that time, and he was like a heavenly god. He had exceeded the limits of the clothes, and with the 3rd leg growing out from his tailbone, they were ripped apart. "Chief Yu," Qin Mu greeted. Yu Jiaoqing of Heavenly Feathers race looked at him with astonishment. Qin Mu had been a heavenly, godlike existence earlier, yet he had suddenly become a young man. The woman's clothes spread out on the ground as she paid her respects earnestly. Qin Mu immediately pointed toward Sun Herder Chief and smiled. "I'm not the chief of this place, he is. I don't dare to exceed my place." The old chief shook his head and said, "Under the whole heaven, every spot is the sovereign's ground. Sun-Herder tribe is also Your Highness's territory, so Your Highness is naturally the owner of this place. Qin Mu could only receive the respects of the woman from Heavenly Feather's race. Chief Yu, this place is not suitable for talking. Have your clansmen come on board and follow us to Sunwell to have a talk. Yu Zhaoqing's consciousness sent out waves, and soon, all Heavenly Feather clansmen came on board. Qin Mu activated Sun Ship once more and walked back into the area shrouded by Sunwell. On the ship, the millions of Heavenly Feather clansmen looked around at the strange little world, the clothes on their body changing colors continuously. Their figures were slightly taller and thinner than those of ordinary humans. Both the men and women were very beautiful, and their clothes changed according to their mood. When it was good, their clothes would become a garish display. After letting go of the sun pillars, Qin Mu was slightly worried about touching the pillars again. The sun had been broken into half by him, and without it acting as the balance, the terrifying energy of Sun Ship had started to absorb his life force. In just a short while, his feet had already been swallowed. That was why he had taken the chance when he shrunk to jump out, but his legs were still sore and weak. Your Highness, you need to be more solemn about meeting the chief of Heavenly Feather clan. You can't neglect her. The old chief invited Qin Mu to enter Sun Shrine before inviting Yu Zhaoqing to come forth and meet him. Your Highness. In Sun Shrine, Yu Zhaoqing walked forward and held Qin Mu's face, gently touching his forehead with hers. What are you doing? Hu Linga was bringing Ling Yuxiu and Cai Yunxiang into Sun Shrine when she saw that scene. She shouted angrily, "How can you kiss?" Yu Zhaoqing looked curiously at the little girl that was barely above her thigh. She bent down and clasped Hu Linga's cheeks before touching her forehead with her own in a gentle manner. Hu Linga instantly felt some stuff appear in her mind. It was the language of Heavenly Feather clan. At the same time, she also felt that Yu Zhaoqing had used it to trade for the language of her world. Hu Linga came to realization. Oh, so it's not kissing. I thought you were taking advantage of my master. Yu Zhaoqing smiled and bent over to give her a peck on the lips. Hu Linga instantly blushed and her heart became restless. She swayed as though she was drunk and said embarrassedly, "A kiss is nothing much as well." Yu Zhaoqing walked over to Ling Yuxiu, and her heart became restless while she looked down at her chest. However, Yu Zhaoqing only touched foreheads with her and didn't kiss her. Once she noticed it, she let out a sigh of relief. Cai Yunxiang also touched foreheads with her and smiled. So it's exchanging language. Is this a gift of your Heavenly Feather clan? Or is it a divine art? It's a gift. Yu Zhaoqing opened her mouth and spoke their language. Even though it was still not as good as that of native speakers, she was getting better as she spoke. Your Highness killed the body-replicated devil god and released our clansmen. We of Heavenly Feather clan are unable to express the gratitude we feel. Qin Mu shook his head and said, I didn't do it to save all of you, just to protect myself, so there's no need to thank me. Does your Heavenly Feather clan lives in great ruins as well? We aren't situated here, but in another world, Yu Zhaoqing said. The world we came from has been seized by body-replicated devil god and nearly all of our clansmen have been swallowed by him. Luckily for us, Your Highness rescued us from being wiped out. Even though Your Highness isn't forcing us to repay the favor, we can't just not do it. The world all of you are from should be the one behind the devil god's corpse, right? Why is it linked to great ruins? Qin Mu asked with curiosity. About 20,000 years ago, our world collided with another world, and the space between them overlapped. We would notice it above our heads at midnight, and it was a marvelous sight, Yu Zhaoqing said. The emperor of that world sent a god over and ordered our Heavenly Feather clan to surrender and pay allegiance to him. Only after that did we learn that the other world we saw was called Founding Emperor Empire. However, one day, an abnormal change happened there and it turned into great ruins. Our Heavenly Feather world also suffered. When night came, our sky was no longer the starry one. Instead, it was covered with the blackest darkness. Sometime later, body-replicated devil god invaded our world. Qin Mu was in a daze. Heavenly Feather world had collided and overlapped the world in which great ruins existed, thus the sky of Heavenly Feather world was great ruins. It was an abnormal sight to behold. It was a pity he probably couldn't see it anymore. Heavenly Feather World had been under the ancient founding Emperor Empire, but because it had suffered a calamity, those under it lost all protection. Because of that, the devil god could find Heavenly Feather World and assimilate all of its people. Founding Emperor Calamity had happened 20,000 years ago. It was also at that time that it turned into great ruins. The territory of founding Emperor Empire was not only in great ruins, it even had other worlds. He couldn't help getting lost in wild and fanciful thoughts. Founding Emperor Empire had conquered other worlds and administered such wonderful ones as Heavenly Feather Clan with all kinds of life forms. Living in that era had to have been interesting. I've heard that this place was known as Celestial Heavens, Yu Jiaoqing said. The Emperor is someone who ruled over all the various heavens. Qin Mu instantly thought of the time when he had brought Xiong Xiu and her daughter through great ruins and the sight he'd seen when they passed by West Heaven Palace. Its ruins had a diagonal piece of land stabbed into it. All kinds of majestic buildings had crumbling fences and dilapidated walls. Pillars had collapsed and were sticking out in all directions while shattered pieces of huge machinery were hidden among the mountain rocks. Qin Mu composed himself and immediately pushed away his peculiar thoughts. Body replicator devil god is already dead, so you guys are safe now. Chief Yu, what's your plan? Rebuild our country and return to our homeland. Yu Xiaoqing's clothes gave off a gentle trembling sound, and they soon transformed into an armor. Her battle spirit mixed while a murderous aura and overflowed into the sky. I want to lead my clansmen back to Heavenly Feather World. There are many other devil races there, the assistants of body replicator devil god who had seized the treasured lands of my Heavenly Feather clan. I need to seize them back and kill all the enemies so we can rebuild our homeland. There are other devil races in Heavenly Feather World. Astonished, Qin Mu calculated it for a moment. Heavenly Feather clan is only left with these few millions of people. Will you have the power to seize Heavenly Feather World back? Yu Jiaoqing was full of confidence. Due to body replicator devil god's death, the other clansmen should have also returned to their senses. We, the Heavenly Feather clan, rely on brain waves to converse with each other. When we fight, it's as easy as commanding our arms, so it won't be hard to seize Heavenly Feather World back. Chief Yu, the paths, skills, and divine arts of the current era are different from those in the past. You guys have been controlled by body replicator devil god for so many years, so you probably don't understand the current era. When on the battlefield, your brain waves can easily be intercepted. You had been controlled for so many years, so your enemies should have already learned everything there is to learn about you. In their eyes, all of you are lambs waiting to be slaughtered. His vital qi burst forth and he executed a divine art. His vital qi transformed into all kinds of strange runes to form the shape of a huge upside-down arc. The runes trembled continuously while giving off sound waves that were hard for ordinary people to hear. However, in the ears of Yu Jiaoqing, it was like a loud and resonating bell was ringing continuously, disrupting her mind. The noise deafened her and made her unable to establish a connection with her clansmen. Qin Mu dispersed his divine art and said, Chief Yu, I feel you should take your time and not rush into things. Yu Xiaoqing's heart was in a mess, and the clothes on her body went through various colors. Messy markings of all shades appeared, making it obvious that her mind was not steady. Qin Mu had only interacted with Heavenly Feather clan for the first time, but he had swiftly realized that the mental connection between them could be exploited. The strong practitioners of the devil race would definitely be aware of it after having studied them for a long time. If Heavenly Feather clan couldn't take out any new abilities, rebuilding their homeland would just be a joke. Returning to Heavenly Feather World was certain death. Eternal Peace Empire is currently in the middle of a reform, and all kinds of paths, skills, and divine arts are rapidly progressing, Qin Mu said. Why don't you all settle down in Eternal Peace Empire first to learn new abilities? When you guys mastered something new, you can then return to Heavenly Feather World to take back your land. Yu Jiaoqing was slightly hesitant. As the chief, she wanted for more than anything to return to Heavenly Feather World and sweep away all the devils there. Yet as Qin Mu had said, returning was certain death, so she had to take her time. Chief Yu probably still doesn't know, but this person beside you isn't any outsider. It's His Highness, Sun-Herder Chief suddenly said. His Highness. Yu Zhaoqing suppressed the conflict in her heart and asked suspiciously, What Highness? The Highness of our Sun-Herder tribe and also the Highness of your Heavenly Feather clan, Sun-Herder Chief said deeply and meaningfully. Yu Zhaoqing's heart trembled violently, and she immediately fell on her knee. Her clothes changed into the outfit of a subject and she greeted Qin Mu once more. Where are all these etiquettes coming from? Founding Emperor Empire is long gone, so I'm not your Highness anymore. Sister Yu, please don't scare me. Qin Mu immediately helped her up and pinched the clothes on her body. He felt that the texture was smooth and humid. He asked with a smile, What are the clothes on Sister Yu's body made of? Zhao Yuqing looked at Sun-Herder Chief in doubt, and he also frowned. Qin Mu seemed to be unwilling to admit that he was the Royal Highness of Carefree Village. He didn't acknowledge his identity in front of him, and he also didn't acknowledge it in front of Yu Zhaoqing. Your Highness, the clothes on my body are actually my skin and wings, Yu Zhaoqing explained. The structure of our Heavenly Feather clan's body is different from yours. We have numerous thin wings, but we have no feathers. Instead, we have scales. When our mood changes, they will change in color as well. My Heavenly Feather clansmen have quite a way in dressing ourselves. When Qin Mu heard her clothes were none other than skin, he couldn't help pinching it again. He discovered that the scales weren't hard. On the contrary, they were actually soft like skin. Yu Zhaoqing's face blushed from his pinching. Your Highness, you can't. Qin Mu let go and couldn't help feeling that it was a great pity. He had wanted to ask Yu Zhaoqing for a few sets of clothes like that. However, a people grew them on their body as part of it, so they couldn't be taken off, and he could only drop the thought. Cai Yinxiang, Ling Yuxiu, and Hu Linga came over and touched the clothes on the woman's body while clicking their tongues in wonder. As they did that, Yu Zhaoqing's face became even redder. She didn't want to let them touch, but she was too embarrassed to refuse them. She could only stand there uncomfortably. The texture is truly wonderful, it's even smoother than Linga's fur. The girls couldn't help sighing in admiration. Ling Yuxiu asked curiously, Chief Yu, if winter comes and the world is freezing, won't you guys feel cold with just that? Yu Zhaoqing shook her head and said, The 4 seasons in our Heavenly Feather world are all comfortably warm, there's no cold weather. Besides, if the weather gets freezing, our scales can be inflated with air to keep us warm. Take a look. While she was saying that, the clothes on her body became thick and puffy, but the design was still very pleasing to the eyes. Everyone exclaimed endlessly in admiration. Sun-Herder Chief stood to the side, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. They had come to Sun Shrine to discuss the important matters of their clan, yet it had become a meeting to admire clothing. After the commotion, Qin Mu said, Chief Yu, you can bring your clansmen to stay in Great Ruins or follow me to Eternal Peace Empire. When the time is ripe, you can then lead your army back to Heavenly Feather World. What do you think? Yu Zhaoqing pondered it for a moment. Your Highness, please wait a moment, let me discuss it with my clansmen before coming to a decision. Qin Mu nodded and Yu Zhaoqing left to do as she had said. Chief, let us go and take a look at the sun that was split. Qin Mu rose and came with everyone to the center of the 2 halves of the sun. Numerous sun herders were trying to pull the chains out from the 2 lumps. They planned to use the chains of Sunship to bring up another sun from Sunwell. Qin Mu had smashed the sun on Sunship into 2 halves, so they needed to get a new sun to be the energy source for Sunship. Otherwise, the new Sun Guardian would be absorbed by the huge ship. Yet the chain was embedded in the sun. Even when it was split into half, it was still very difficult to pull the chains out. Qin Mu walked toward the interior of the hemisphere and saw that the inside contained a complicated 3-dimensional formation structure. Thousands of formations had to be activated for the sun that had once been a golden ball to radiate astonishing rays and firepower. Because of what Qin Mu had done, numerous formations had gotten damaged. When the sun hit its target, numerous components were lost. There were over a dozen sun herders who had entered the sun to undo the chains. However, no matter how much strength they exerted, they still couldn't pull them out. Is there anyone proficient in formation skills? An elder asked loudly. These chains are stuck in over a dozen formations, and they need to be undone for us to achieve anything. The numerous sun herders that were busy immediately stopped in their work and greeted Qin Mu. He returned the greetings and examined the interior formations in detail. The chains that locked the sun went from the surface into the core, and there were over a dozen formations that were clasping tightly onto the 4 chains. The old chief was also examining the structure of the formations. When he saw the complicated runes on the components, his eyes were dazzled. He shook his head and said, "There are no formation masters in our sun herders, so we won't be able to undo them." Qin Mu pondered it before saying, "I finally understand why Ziqing couldn't forge sun well and moon well even after 100 years. Everyone looked at him, rather puzzled. They didn't know why he suddenly talked about Ziqing forging the wells. The structure of the formations in this sun is actually that of divine eyes. Qin Mu walked between all the formations and differentiated the runes on top of them while speaking rapidly. The emperor must have ordered Ziqing to forge the wells because he had seen her abilities. She must have been the #1 divine eyes back then. The attainments in her divine eyes had to have been matchless, so the emperor had ordered her to forge sun and moon well. He quickly browsed through the structures of the formations that were locking the chains once more. Coming out of the sun, he carefully examined the surface. It wasn't smooth, but with numerous markings like those of a tree's grains. The reason why Ziqing did nothing for 100 years was because she had already realized that to forge sun and moon well, she would need to use her divine eyes as a sacrifice. When the wells were done, she would become blind. That was why she spent 100 years to enjoy her life to the fullest. Qin Mu felt around the surface of the sun, and after a moment, he found a circular marking that was jutting out at one spot. His vital chi flowed out, and he instantly saw the marking light up before starting to spin continuously. At the same time, the dozen and more formations that were holding back the chain started to operate and slowly loosened. Qin Mu nodded and said, "Only when the emperor got angry did she put in all her heart and will to forge the wells." She then dug out her eyes to light up sun well and moon well. In front of them, the interior structure of the sun was changing continuously as the formations were being solved with resounding bangs. The surface of the sun and the complicated markings were also lighting up continuously. Huge pieces on the surface started move backward layer by layer. The half of the sun seemed to have come alive, and it frightened everyone into moving backward in alarm. They only saw the formations of the sun changing continuously until it shrunk into a solid metal wall erected upright in front of them. Qin Mu then came to the front of the other half of the sun and did the exact same thing. In the end, it also turned into a solid metal wall. The two of them stood upright in front of everyone. They were golden in color, as simple and unadorned. The height was around 300 yards, and they were several miles long. God Ziqing knew that she had to sacrifice her divine eyes to the well in order to complete the emperor's mission, so she spent 100 years to enjoy her life to the fullest before using another 50 years to complete the emperor's request. What an extraordinary woman! Qin Mu exclaimed in admiration. When he looked at the two walls, respect appeared on his face. He then said in a low voice, "She's called Ziqing. Zi means big sister and Qing means green. It says that she was a big sister that liked wearing green in her family. What a pity I won't have the fate to meet such an extraordinary person. What happened to you guys?" He looked back and saw everyone staring at him blankly. They were all flabbergasted. Qin Mu couldn't help being bewildered. He explained, "Zi means sister and Qing is green. Ziqing means a big sister wearing green." "And not this," an elder stuttered. "Your Highness, you have solved the formations in the sun." Qin Mu realized what he meant and smiled. "It wasn't hard to solve it. I've done some research in regards to divine arts about the divine eyes. In Eternal Peace Empire, I even forged a divine eye that had a pretty similar structure. Of course, it isn't as intricate as this sun." Ziqing was really remarkable. He raised his head to look at the two walls. "I've learned quite a lot of stuff. I really want to go into the well to look at her eyes." This video will end here.